Welcome back, everybody. I hope that the sound quality of this video is okay. It's absolutely stunning outside, but it is a little windy. Lots of trees nearby, so I'm hoping it's not too loud. But just on a day like this, I really don't want to be inside. So I wanted to get on and make another clip for you guys, as I kind of promised myself that I'd try to get back to doing at least, several a month, hopefully every week. So I think the thing that I want to talk about today, because I've received so many emails here in the last month, especially with people that are really struggling. And I work, if I'm not the right coach to help somebody through it, I try to get you over to another coach or somebody else that might be a support. But I'm just I was sitting here thinking about kind of my own journey through this and what it was like at times to feel like just to feel hopeless, like there was nothing I could do to make this better. And I remember when I began to realize that there maybe wasn't a whole lot I could do to make it better, but there were things I was doing that was making it worse. And they were things that were very intuitive. This is not a blame game. It was not a blame game of me when my coach and the people that were supporting me helped me understand this. And it's not me blaming you, but it is recognizing that, that I did have some skin in the game, and I was participating in certain things that were incredibly natural and intuitive. And they were making me worse. And when I say they were natural and intuitive, what I mean by that is that when we are feeling distressed, when we are feeling overwhelmed, when we are feeling crazy, when we are feeling totally, overrun by all kinds of physical and mental and cognitive symptoms, there's nothing more natural, truly nothing more natural, than jumping into this internal preoccupation with the pain, the internal preoccupation with the symptoms, the internal preoccupation with the fear that we're developing of our minds and our bodies. That's incredibly natural and normal and intuitive. There's very few other things in this world that kind of are as intense as going through benzo and med withdrawal and last as long. And to be faced with that, kind of day after day, week after week, month after month, and to feel the worst we've ever felt, and then to be kind of told, like, we have to help you zoom out. The natural thing is to zoom in. Oh my gosh, I don't think I can handle this. Oh my gosh, what if this gets worse? Oh my gosh, I don't think I can take this one more day. I'm losing my family, my job, my life, my joy, my fun, my future. And we are so internally preoccupied. And we're internally preoccupied because it's also our nature as human beings to try to fix what is wrong, to go inward and to be studying our symptoms, to become super focused on them as a way of trying to make sense of the madness. People call me in one of two places. They're either completely confused and bewildered by what the hell is going on, or they have developed so much fear and distress about the fear and distress that they're feeling, that they're stuck in this very, very, very tight loop. And it feels like all they can do is kind of lay in wait for the receptors to upregulate, lay in wait for the neurochemistry to right itself. And I think this is where we go wrong. I know this is where we go wrong, and I know I can speak from firsthand experience. If you've listened to my story, I had a very bad med injury from an antibiotic, followed by a very bad med injury with the meds they put me on, namely a benzo, to help me through the antibiotic injury. But what also happened to me through this is that I became obsessed with how I was feeling. I became terrified of the stories my mind could come up with, the thoughts, the images, the ideas, the memories. I became obsessed with how I was feeling. I woke up each day and it was the first thing I thought about because it was so on me. It was so there. How could you not think about it when you wake up and, 7 seconds later you're thrust into hell? But what I know for me, and again, if this speaks to you, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. I'm not the coach for everybody. I'm not the support for everyone. My videos are not always going to be relevant for you. But I know for me that even though I'd been a therapist at that point for decades, I thought I knew everything I needed to know about anxiety and what to do when you're in distress, psychic distress. I got lost. I got bewildered. I got confused. I got overwhelmed. And I got terrified. And I lost my world. Now, some would say I lost my world to a med injury. I'm not going to deny that there was a precipitating event. I'm not going to deny that. There's nobody that can tell me I took an antibiotic and my brain didn't blow up. Nobody can tell me that I got on, Xanax to help with that and couldn't get off. Those are facts. There's no subjectivity to that. But the place I got eventually curious was how terrified I had become, how locked in I was, how afraid of my mind and my body I'd become, and I began to only pay attention to the narrative of med injury. And some of the advice I was being given, I'm now very grateful that I didn't stop there. Because a lot of the advice I was given was, yeah, this has happened to you, it sucks, and there's really nothing you can do about it except kind of lay in wait for everything to come back to normal. But some small part of me knew that there was more to my story. And the more to my story was that, yeah, I think my neurochemistry was bonkers. I think, I was having pain, physical pain, mental distress, psychic distress, intrusive thoughts, depersonalization, derealization, feeling like I was on the edge of myself, feeling like I was plugged into a socket. And all that stuff was real. But what I had to do was I had to learn, and this is what my channel is about, was the deep dive into the nervous system and what happens when a nervous system has become overly taxed for whatever reason. My reason was an antibiotic and then a benzo. Yours might have been an antidepressant and a benzo, or life stressors and then a benzo. But what I came, again, this is my journey, but if it speaks to you, then I hope this is helpful. Because at some point I had to realize, yes, there was this thing that happened to me, and then there was my reaction to what was happening. So it wasn't like this thing that happened to me on a Tuesday, and then I reacted and I just kept it into place. No, it was a thing. I mean, if you're going through this, you realize it's a thing that keeps happening. You're really having these symptoms, but I was aware that my terror, my lockdown, my freeze state was so severe that if I didn't start to do something different, if I didn't start to work with somebody who was going to get me through this differently, I felt like I had the story of somebody who was probably going to stay stuck for a very, very, very long time. And so I began to realize that I had developed what I believed to be a pretty severe anxiety disorder and OCD as a result of what happened. Before what happened, before the event, before the medication, I had probably a predisposition to some sticky brain. I kind of was an overthinker. I analyzed a lot, I assessed a lot, I evaluated a lot. My whole job was doing that. I was a therapist. So my whole job was about getting to the bottom of things and figuring things out and plugging holes and fixing situations and problem solving. I was a ninja of that. So when I got sick and it moved into a state of total despair, I went to those tools once again to try to get myself out of it. But every time I would do what I had been trained to do and what I knew to do as a human, I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And that's when I realized, okay, I've got to broaden my scope here a little bit. And I've got to understand the nervous system in general. I've got to understand the threat response system in general. I've got to understand why this thing can have 200 different manifestations. And in doing that, I ultimately was able to kind of get to a place where I was able to see what my real problem was. I stopped saying my real problem was benzo withdrawal. And this was hard because I felt that the injustice of what had happened to me needed to be spoken about. And I will forever speak about it. I will forever be an advocate for this because it shouldn't have happened to me and it shouldn't have happened to you. However, that wasn't going to get me out of it. What was going to get me out of it was what I did next. And what I did next was I went above that space. I went to the next level of the umbrella and really understood what it meant to have a nervous system that was really just gone bonkers. Whether you call it crispy, whether you call it fried, whether you call it injured, it didn't matter. What I had to do was really understand what was going on, and then to think about, well, what do you do? What do you do when, your stress drug is not just overflowed, it is, seeping out onto the counters and the floor in this endless flow. It's like having sprung a leak in my threat response system. And so much of what I learned and so much of what I now talk about, whether I'm talking about it to somebody who's been injured by a benzodiazepine, an antidepressant, another medication, whether I'm talking to somebody who has developed a severe, what we would call anxiety disorder or OCD in their lives for other reasons. And really looking at what am I doing and what am I not doing that's feeding this? And people get angry with me all the time. They get frustrated with me. You're not, this is different. We're different. Okay, what's different is the precipitating event. What's different is how you landed here. And like I said, I will never minimize the injustice of that. But if you're feeling as bad as I was, you're wanting to hear what to do next. What do I do, Jennifer? How do I get out of this? What is it going to take to get my life back? And for me, and that's all I can speak to was for me, and what I learned and what I believe and what I believe now was true baby steps, and I mean baby steps. And sometimes it wasn't even baby steps. Sometimes it was one little baby step forward and five giant leaps backwards. Talk about nonlinear. But I kept coming back to the same basic principles. I kept coming back to that acronym DEAL that I talk about in my videos from a couple months ago. And when I'm working with my clients and I'm working with people that are going through this or other things where they've gotten their nervous system in a state where, their intuitive response is to be operating from a state of terror and freeze, we really have to look at, for each individual, what is the path out? What is the path through? And so I really want you to hear, if you're distraught, if you're in despair, no matter where you're at in your journey, there is a way through this. There's not a magic elixir. I wish there was. There's not a magic time limit. I wish there was. What's interesting is that if I can get people, just like myself, for myself, and I can get people to a place of, okay, I am learning to live alongside the noise in my mind and my body. That's not the end goal. The end goal is long-term freedom. But the problem is we're constantly focusing on, paying attention to, and therefore by default feeding the noise that's happening in our nervous system, our minds, and our body. We're feeding the fear and the terror. And it feels like an impossibility to think that there's anything you can do outside of taking another pill or having some magical vagus nerve stimulator that you attach to your neck, or, saying this magic mantra. No, this is, I know as you're listening to this, you're feeling worse than you've ever felt. You're feeling more scared than you've ever felt because you have felt betrayed, not only by your own mind and your own body, but I'm sure you have felt betrayed by the medical establishment. You've lost trust. And the loss of trust leads to a lack of safety. And a lack of safety perpetuates this process. So, yes, a long way of saying, I just was thinking about how important it was for me to begin to really grasp the larger picture of what had happened, to get myself out of some of the lingo and some of the ways I was thinking about this, to get myself some really good psychoeducation on what was going on and begin to build a path through it. And that's what I've done for me. It's what I do for people I work with. I have had a lot of people reach out and wanting assistance and wanting help. And there's a lot of really good benzo coaches out there. There's a lot of really good people doing this work. And I'm not the right person for everyone by any means. Like I said, where I think I tend to be the most helpful for people is where, you're ready to see this differently. You're grabbing hold of your life again, but it's slipping through your fingers a little bit. And for every step forward you take, maybe there's two backwards, or maybe you're doing it, but the level of suffering you're feeling inside is just immeasurable. And you're getting frustrated and sad and scared that, the world is looking like maybe you're doing better, but you feel as bad as you ever did. And how to make that kind of leap into the next level of this. If you've reached out to me and I've referred you to somebody else, it's not that I think you're a lost cause by any means. I don't think there are lost causes in this. But if you've reached out and I've referred you to somebody else, it's because I want you to be with somebody that I think is going to be able to walk the walk with you. And I think just like when I was a therapist, there were a lot of people that came in that I wasn't the right fit for lots of reasons. Maybe they had an eating disorder. Wasn't my forte. Maybe they had a history of something that I just wasn't at the top of my game on. I wasn't going to waste their time or money. I'm not going to waste yours now. I want you to have what you need, and I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at, and I'm going to be honest and direct about that. But what I also know that I'm good at is, and what was so imperative in this for me, was, like I said, starting to trust that there was a way through this, number one, and starting to get some very good, solid information that was simple and coherent and straightforward, that gave me a plan. It gave me something that said, this is my job. This is my job today. This is my job tomorrow. This is the way through this. Because it can feel like you're just, scaling a wall, free climbing, and you got a foothold finally, and then all of a sudden you slide down the side of the mountain again, and you get the foothold. And I get it, that is part of the process, but good information and a good solid plan with somebody that understands your strengths, your vulnerabilities, your predispositions, what this journey has been like for you. What do you believe about this whole process? What do you have in place that's working for you? What do we need to put in place to help you on the next phase of this? So feel free to reach out. Again, if I'm not the right fit, I will do my best to help you find somebody that is. If you've emailed me, because I have had a couple, I don't know, there's been off and on over the weeks. I don't know what's going on, but it's dumping a lot of my emails into promotions file on my Gmail. So I will start to look there to make sure I haven't missed anybody. If I've missed you, reach back out again. And like I said, if I'm not the right person, we'll help you find the right person. There's a lot of good people doing this work, and everyone has their own way to do it. But if you think about it, most people are saying kind of the same thing. Different versions of it. They come at it from a little bit of a different angle. Everyone's had their own journey. But at the end of the day, the nervous system is the nervous system is the nervous system. There's not 40 different ways to do this. So, and that, to me, was very important to figure out. I hope you can reach out to me through jenniferswanphd.com. I'll put it in the write-up below. And there's a contact page on there that you're welcome to reach